Of course, UTMB is probably on the ultra circuit one of the more demanding sorts of races, right? With I think it's around 10,000 meters of vertical gain over
Yes.
kind of 100 miles, a bit more, maybe 110. But then there are maybe, I don't want to say easier races because it is still quite tough. For example, a Western States, which is a net downhill course, people say it's more runnable. But of course, there are maybe the listeners who are listening are not doing such tough races, maybe 100K with 3,000 vertical. At what point do you think that it is not as relevant? I mean, maybe I stretch it a bit to an extreme. Maybe on a marathon level and a flat marathon, it's maybe not as relevant. You don't need as much muscular strength, even, right? Um, so, of course, for UTMB, the case seems very strong. Tom
Mm-hmm.
Evans also won UTMB. I don't know if he was coached by you at that point. Oh,
Yes.
sorry, he won Western
Yes.
States. Like,
Yes,
was
he
it also
was.
something you used for Western States already, even given the difference in course?
Yes, and I will. That's a great comparison, and you're right. Yeah, they're very different courses, and the preparation is different. Was for Tom, but in 2025, one of our other coaches, also using a very strong muscular endurance approach to the training, coached Caleb Olson, who won Western States. And Caleb was doing uphill pack carries with 20, 25 kilos. And he won Western States. And he said, yeah, my legs felt indestructible, could not make my legs tired. And so I mean, who doesn't want to have legs that don't get tired?
Yeah.
And yes, it's different because there is, as you say, it's a net downhill. There's a lot of faster flat running, but if you can preserve your legs, the initial part of and even later in the race, there's some pretty substantial climbs at Western States. Even though the net is downhill, there's still some big climbs, and if you can save your legs on those uphills so that the downhills or the flat sections you're going to have more legs left for that. That was the approach we took with Caleb. That was the approach I took with Tom the year he won. So it doesn't make sense to me that I mean, obviously for something like Hard Rock or Western States, Hard Rock or UTMB, where there's an extreme amount of elevation gain and loss, it's going to play an even bigger role. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have a place in any of these other races. Anything that I'll come. Here's a very basic concept that I think people need to grasp. In any endurance event, the single biggest limiter is local muscular fatigue. The limiter to the speed you can sustain is local muscular fatigue. And the reason I say that is every endurance event is competed at a sub-maximal level. Because if it was maximal level, you wouldn't be able to sustain it for very long. And so that means that you're not limited by the amount of oxygen that your heart can supply to the muscles, because you're operating below your heart's maximum pumping capacity for everybody. And especially when you get into these multi-hour events, then you're operating well below your maximum capacity. So what is the limitation? It's local muscular fatigue. So how could we improve local muscular fatigue? Well, there are a number of ways. I mean, you could run a prodigious, huge volume. Yeah, you could run 150 miles a week, week after week after week, and you will develop more muscular endurance and more fatigue resistance in those muscles. Or you could also substitute some of this type of muscular endurance training, this training with resistance against the movement, and get a lot of that same effect without the mega miles. Now, then you made a point about some people may say that my athletes don't run a lot of miles. In the build up to UTMB last year and the Hard Rock this year for Tom, he was running over 200 kilometers a week with over 10,000 meters of vertical. That's a lot of volume. So they do. Ruth is in the same. Isn't quite that same high level, but the same volume, but is similar. So, but they still are. So in a 30-hour week, they're maybe doing an hour and a half of this resistance type training, like I'm talking about. It And it's because, first of all, it's a very potent type of training, has a huge training effect for the time spent. Let's call it, the colloquial term in America would be the bang for the buck. It's got a lot of bang for the buck. So anyway, I'm kind of going off on a tangent there. Sorry. But if you want to improve local muscular fatigue resistance, this is a way you can do it. And it will benefit you, yes, probably make you a better climber, but it might also make you better at running. After the climb is over and you have to go downhill, well, if your legs are fresher, you're going to run the downhill better too.